Introduce you to Bobby Bryant. Bobby is going to be our 28th inductee into the Vikings Ring of Honor. Bobby played for us from 1967 to 80, and including playoffs, is our all-time career interception leader, career interception touchdown leader, and has the longest touchdown in Vikings playoff history. So you don't want to see any more of me, I'll turn it over to Bobby Bryant.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here in Viking country for an old Viking. So fire away if you have questions. And
Bobby, how surprising was this? I mean, it's
how surprising was it? I was
the last time you played.
I was amazed that it took them so long. You know, not really. I mean, that's an honor that no one should ever expect to receive. The type of honor, but when I did get that call, I was pretty much blown away. I really never expected it, and didn't think I deserved it, but it sure is nice to have it. So
you can tell how much it meant for Fran and Alan to be on the call with you, and how glad they are that you're joining them.
Well, if they're two goats, those two are goats, and people that are in the know that a goat is the greatest of all time. And those Alan and Fran were, you know, just great players and great friends too. So they Alan took good care of me. The reason I got 51 interceptions was because of Alan Page and Jim Marshall and Carl Eller and Gary Larson and Doug Sutherland, because they didn't give quarterbacks a whole lot of time to throw the ball. So they couldn't wait to get rid of it, and they threw a lot of the times they threw the ball right to me. So don't lean on the podium.
Bless you. On the call, how did you get the news that you were going to be the inductee?
Pardon?
How did you get the news that you were going to be the inductee? You mentioned those guys were on the call, but how
Well,
did the call go?
it was kind of like when I was in college at the University of South Carolina my senior year. After the draft, I got a call from the equipment manager for the Minnesota Vikings. His name was Stubby Eason. And Stubby was an old war veteran, and he had one of his legs shot off in the war. I mean, I think it was World War II. Anyway, he had a stub leg. That's why we called him Stubby. But I was so important draft by the Vikings that they had the equipment manager call me. I mean, not another coach or not the president of the team, but the equipment manager. But I found out that during the draft, they were so busy, you know, all the pro teams were so busy that they had everybody in the organization working in the draft, calling players and telling them they'd been drafted. And so, but I don't know if that answered your question or not, did it?
Well, in terms of getting the call that you were going to be the Ring of Honor inductee, you mentioned Fran and Alan were on it, but who else was on that call to inform you?
Yes, that was a great call to get my roomie, Alan Page. Alan and I roomed together. We played in our senior years in college. Alan was at Notre Dame and I was at South Carolina. We both played on the East team in the East-West Shrine game. And then when we got drafted by the Vikings, now I think before that, Gale Sayers and Brian Piccolo were the first black-white player roommates in pro football. That was what we were told anyway. But anyway, Alan and I became friends out in San Francisco during that week of the Shrine Bowl. And so when we both got drafted by the Vikings, we said, why don't we be roommates? And so we did for 14 years.
Bobby, how do you think rooming with Alan helped you in your football career?
How do you
think rooming with Alan, how do you think having Alan as a roommate helped you in your football career?
Well, I know it did, because that's the way I got all my interceptions, with Jim Marshall and Alan and Carl and Doug and Gary rushing the quarterback. And so our defensive line was so great, and they made the Minnesota Viking defense the purple people leaders. So.
What was your greatest skill as a defender? Would you say it's your anticipation, your speed, your quickness? What was your greatest skill as a defender?
Sure wasn't my size. No. When I graduated from high school, I weighed 140 pounds as a halfback, and I got a full scholarship to the University of South Carolina. And not too many schools were looking for 145-pound halfbacks, but South Carolina saw something in me, and so they gave me a chance to play, and I did pretty well at South Carolina, and then got drafted by the Vikings. And the people that knew football said, "What the heck are they drafting a guy like him?" I weighed 160 pounds by that time, but I did get drafted and came up to Minnesota. And my first year, I gained 20 pounds, and but then, then we got Alan Page and I were drafted in the same year. And of course, Alan was one of the greatest of all time. And he made the front four the fearsome foursome. Actually, I guess that was the name of somebody else, but they were the Purple Gang, Purple People Eaters. And but Alan took good care of me, and because of the way he rushed the passer.
When Alan first called you, did you think he was just calling to talk as friends? Did you get a heads up what the phone call was about? How did that go down?
I had no idea what it was about, but it was pretty neat to have Alan and Fran Tarkenton call me to tell me that I had been named to the Viking Ring of Honor. So.
You may not have been big on size, but you produced so many big plays, NFC championships, a couple interceptions in 2 of those games, as well as touchdowns too. What enabled you to make so many big plays in those clutch games?
Alan Page, Gary Larson, Jim Marshall, and Carl Eller and Doug Sutherland. Those guys played so great. They were, quarterbacks just couldn't wait to get rid of the ball. They did not like to be, that rush. They knew the rush was coming.
What do you think about the skill set of quarterbacks in today's game when you watch?
The skill set of quarterbacks?
Corner.
Oh,
Like,
corners.
defense.
Corners.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say most of the corners are probably better than I was, but I was lucky to play on a great defense. But corners today, I weighed 160 pounds when I played. I was 6 feet tall. But corners today are, having lunch today, and the Viking players were there, and I was looking at some of the corners, and they're 6'4", 220 pounds, run fast. So it's just, but I think that's been a trend in professional sports, and especially football, over the past 30, 40 years, is the players have gotten bigger and faster and stronger, and they're just they're just bigger.
How extra special is this honor that, there's multiple generations of Vikings fans that have no recollection of you. They don't know who you are, but now this honor opens their eyes. They can now pay attention to all your great accomplishments.
Well, just get on, if you know how to Google something, just Google Bobby Bryant. You'll see a few of my interceptions.
Bobby, what was it like to play for Bud Grant?
It was great playing for a coach like Bud Grant, because Bud was a disciplinarian, and he demanded that players be disciplined. If you made a lot of mistakes, you couldn't play for Bud. And I was a very disciplined player, because when I was growing up, my dad and mom made sure that I was disciplined. So Bud liked disciplined players, so I think I like to think he liked me anyway, because he let me play for him for 14 years. But Bud was a great coach, and died way too young. He was only 92, but he's the kind of guy that should be on Mount Rushmore with the other 4 great guys up there. But Bud was a great coach to play for, as long as you did what he wanted you to do. If you were a disciplined player and didn't get in trouble, didn't make mistakes, you could play for Bud.
In your objective opinion, did Drew Pearson push off in 1975?
Absolutely. But it wasn't on me. It was on Nate.
Coleman said that was the best team that year. Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, we did have a great team. That was one play that just ended our season, but we were capable of being the best team ever, with the Vikings.
Do you have a favorite play in your career?
A favorite play? Not one I can think of.
Any of the interceptions.
That
any
means
of the,
I had a few that
Yeah, exactly.
might qualify as good ones, but I had I think we were playing the 49. I mean the Rams in the NFC Championship game, and they marched opening kickoff. They marched down the field and had first and goal on the Viking 2-yard line, and we held them for 3 downs. And on 4th down, they tried a field goal, and Nate Allen came from the right side and blocked it. I was on the left side, and it took one bounce and was right in my arms as I caught it on the 5-yard line, and all I had to do was run 95 yards without falling down, and I did. So, but that was a big play, and one of the longest scoring runs I ever made. So,
Do you remember how you felt after that play?
I was a little tired, but I felt good.